I really felt the call to come back to Colorado, and I really felt just intuitively like that's where some of the healing was going to come from, and where I felt like I had a lot of people who wanted to support me here. Everything felt like it was hanging on today, or really just on this week. You know, there was no way to gauge how I was going to feel afterwards, or, you know, no planning that could be done until this chapter of my life was over. Physically, I healed really well. I had amazing surgeons, and they did such a good job that it was that was a really effortless part of the journey. You know, it was just like the first few months, and then physically, you know, I'm fully capable now, and I go hiking and climbing, and, you know, physically I'm definitely my old self again. There was, just felt, it was a really vulnerable moment where I felt relief and triumph that justice was served, that Aurora was acknowledged in spirit. You know, the hardship that she went through, the hardship that I went through, all of that was seen and acknowledged with that action. Really, this trial has allowed me to be more in touch with sort of the more gritty emotions like anger. And so knowing today, going into that courtroom and seeing her, I finally felt like I had reached a comfortable place in myself where I felt like my anger was valid, and I also felt the compassion, and I reached a comfortable place where I could experience both of those. You know, a lot of the questions are questions that I would want answered, but I totally recognize that I will never get them from her. I think she is really not capable of a genuine answer at this point, or from what she's demonstrated. So I don't really feel, there are things that I want to know the answers to, but that I don't expect to ask them of her and get an answer. I have no expectation that our paths will cross again, but if they do, and if she apologizes, I forgive her whether she asks my forgiveness or not. And I'm still really in disbelief at her actions, but I don't need her to apologize, because I don't think I'll ever get that from her. I think it's probably a fear of any parent who's lost a child that they will forget, but that they will forget, and that they won't think of them daily. But as the days and weeks and months have gone by, it's effortless for her to come into my thoughts, and I know she'll be with me forever in spirit, and so I'm not afraid of forgetting. I've tried to relinquish some of that fear and just know that she's there. And even if one day I spend a whole day not thinking about her, that it's not to judge myself or shame myself, and just know that she's always there, whether I think of her or not. I also try to honor her with the decisions that I make, to be engaged in being a more peaceful person, and someone who wants to bring peace and love and authenticity into this world. And I think honoring her with my actions is just as important as having physical reminders of her. For myself, it was difficult. I know it was for my family and for Dan. It was really another example of a paradox of life being extremely beautiful and extremely cruel. And I did all the things that, you know, a mom would want to do. I read to her, I dressed her, I held her, but knowing that she was only present in spirit and not physically was a really painful thing to grasp, because it was such an offering on her part to be there in spirit and feeling her presence really strongly, but not being able to witness her first breath or her first smile or even seeing what her eyes looked like was extremely difficult. I definitely believe there's sort of a paradox that I alluded to earlier, which is that this life is extremely beautiful and this life is extremely difficult and cruel. And, you know, somewhere between those two experiences, I think that I'm able to live between those two things that says there are so many gifts and lessons that come out of the hardest experiences of our lives. And sometimes you just have to be without that, you know, rational thinking and just cry and be completely vulnerable to the emotions that become present and show up.